live tonight on Australia Now. Joining me now from Albury-Wodonga is Nationals Senate Leader Bridget McKenzie. Bridget, thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. What's the mood like on the ground there at the moment? Because we're hearing reports from Charlotte that there are moves to try and have that checkpoint moved north to ease the chaos. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Peter, it's great to be with you and your viewers. Look, it's a real testament to the resilience and the can-do attitude of regional Australians that there hasn't been more chaos here on the border. But early this morning, we had queues getting to the checkpoint in Albury back 7 kilometres. It was taking a long, long time for regular commuters to get from Wodonga to Albury. There's a sense of confusion, increasing anxiety and frustration that border residents here in the Twin Cities are having to pay the price, obviously, for the spike in COVID cases far, far away in Melbourne. But they're getting on with it. They're doing the best they can. But there has been a lot of teething problems. We've got truckies that are so essential for our food supply chain in the first wave of the pandemic, really struggling with some of the issues with the permit allocations and the directions of the New South Wales health order around when they should and shouldn't isolate. So there is a bit of a lack of clarity. I've had comments from truckies who've been in grain issues. We've had bridges right throughout those border communities, not just here in Albury-Wodonga, but further downstream that are closed, causing huge confusion and havoc in those smaller border communities. So we're doing the best we can, but I absolutely agree that we're seeing decisions made both in Melbourne and Sydney that severely impact regional communities in both New South Wales and Victoria that are affecting our local economies, affecting health service provisions, education facilities and our social infrastructure. So I think we do need to be looking at more creative ways that we can deal with a very real problem. I've written to both premiers today to ask them to extend what constitutes a border community. Right now it is you get a special locals permit if you're within 50k, for instance, of Albury-Wodonga. Well, for those of us who live out in regional communities, a 50k one-way trip can just be the school drop-off on any given morning. So a much more sensible, realistic option would be to extend that to 100 kilometres because Albury-Wodonga is the primary health service provider for people in excess of 100k away. We've got, you can only have the baby on one side of the border, you can only get your cancer treatment on the other. We've only got one headspace available to our young people in this community, and that's on the Victorian side of the border. So there are some real issues with how we're going to work through this in the long term. And I would like to see that hard lockdown in Melbourne. We don't want Melburnians up here either at the moment while they're struggling with their very serious health issue, and we want to get that under control. But we don't believe that regional communities should be paying the price for that. We need our local economies open.
Bridget, you mentioned the resilience of regional communities, and our viewers will agree with that. But I get a sense, and I mean this is a tough sort of issue to confront, but I get a sense that the mental health of Australians right now is taking a battering, not just on the borders, but also, obviously in Melbourne right now, because, many people thought we were through this and maybe that complacency hurt us. But I mean, I've got a sense that there's a lot of people who are absolutely, going nuts at the moment because there are so many barriers being put in front of them. And I applaud you for writing to both premiers to say, hey, we need some special concessions here. Are you getting that sense?
Look, I think you're right, Peter. There's the anxiety of parents having to go back to wondering whether they're going to be homeschooling their children again. We've got very real concerns of our hospitality industry just starting to reopen again, re-employing people, having to face 6 weeks of being shut down. I think about our regional tourism operators out here. They've had that triple whammy. They've had the drought, had a hell summer of bushfires, then we've had COVID, and they've just started opening up And, overnight I was talking, looking at the local Italian restaurant, they had 80 cancellations from Albury customers overnight, which really then severely impacts their ability to get on top of it. I think if you're a small business owner, you've got that real, whether you're in the regions or in Melbourne, that can-do entrepreneurial spirit. You're willing to sort of put it all on the line and have a go. That lack of confidence, uncertainty, severely impacts people's mental health. And I think we need to be taking care of each other, obviously, but making sure that at a more formal end, we've got the services available for people to access from home if you're in Melbourne, or if you're on the border and you're a young person, you should be able to walk into a headspace and get the service provision that you need.
I think it's a really live issue, and I think it's one that we need to be really careful of. Before we go, Bridget, what did you think of the Eden Monaro result? Nats didn't do particularly well. There were allegations that Barilaro ran dead. What were your thoughts?
Oh, look, we had a fantastic candidate in Trevor Hicks. He's a fellow law-abiding firearm owner, so we went and shot a few clays when I had the opportunity to campaign with him. He ran a really strong campaign. I think if you look at the National Party's vote, there are issues that we will need to look at. It's the same after every election, but we didn't take a backward step. Our ministers that went through that particular seat were advocating for a strong voice in Canberra's parliament for regional communities in Eden Monaro. I'm sure Trevor would have done a great job, but we did a lot of work in there. Our preference flow to the Liberal Party was strong and on average with other federal election campaigns. So, I think it bodes well for the coalition, the strong proposition that we put to that electorate.
Sure. Bridget McKenzie, great to see you tonight. Thanks for joining us as usual on Sky News Across Australia.
Anytime.